This looks like a shock collar, and this looks like a tiny hearing aid. But both devices are actually designed to support relaxation, recovery, better sleep habits, and so much more by stimulating your vagus nerve. But not all vagus nerve stimulation devices work the same, and the biggest difference might surprise you. So I tested the two most talked about ones for 4 weeks so you don't have to, so let's talk about it. This is the Pulsetto, and this is the Nuropod. I have been interested in trying out vagus nerve stimulation devices for a while. I found out about the benefits of vagus nerve stimulation about 9 months ago, and I was really interested in trying some of these devices, but I honestly couldn't decide which one I wanted to try. So I looked at all the different devices and I looked at the research around the Nuropod, and I was leaning towards the Nuropod until Pulsetto reached out to me and said they wanted to work together, and I told them, okay, I want to work with you, but I really want to try both of these devices. So we agreed to do that. So first, I want to say thank you to Pulsetto for sponsoring this video, and even though the company did send me the device, I will be giving you my complete honest review on both devices so that you can make the best decision on whether or not you want to purchase one of these devices and which one you want to get by the end of this video. So we're going to talk about the vagus nerve, what it is, what it does, what vagus nerve stimulation does and those benefits, the different device options, and then we're going to go into my experience using each one. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve, and it runs from the brainstem down the neck, down the back, and into the abdomen, and it helps to regulate some of the parasympathetic nervous system functions like breathing, heart rate, digestion, anti-inflammatory responses. So vagus nerve stimulation is designed to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows your body to shift into a more calmer, balanced state, which can aid in those things like stress reduction, digestion, helping with sleep, and helping your body recover and getting those anti-inflammatory benefits. Overall, it's about helping your body shift into that calmer state, and when your body is in that calmer state, it allows you to have better relaxation, better recovery. It helps with sleep, it eases tension and stress, and it can also help with your mood. So like I mentioned, I had first heard about activating the parasympathetic nervous system and doing vagus nerve stimulation through practices like breath work and making sounds with your mouth and using vibration coming from your breath and your voice to stimulate the vagus nerve, because it does run down the back of the neck, so it's all very connected. But I didn't know there were devices for a while, and I had heard a few things about them, sort of forgot about it, and it wasn't until my GI doctor brought it up again and recommended that I try one, and then I was like, okay, I really have to see what these vagus nerve stimulation devices are about. Vagus nerve stimulation devices are generally considered safe, but there can be some medical contraindications like having a pacemaker, seizures, or low blood pressure, so just always make sure to ask your doctor before you try one of these devices. Not all vagus nerve stimulation devices are the same, and one of the biggest differences is the location in which they stimulate the nerve. So the Pulsetto is cervical based, which stimulates the vagus nerve from the neck area, and the Nuropod is auricular, so that stimulates the vagus nerve through the ear. And a quick clarification, because this was something that confused me early on when I was looking into these devices, the Nuropod is the US name for the NeuroSim. So if you are buying the Nuropod NeuroSim outside of the US, it'll likely be called the NeuroSim. If you buy it in the US, it'll likely be called the Nuropod, but they are the same device and they both stimulate the vagus nerve through the ear. The Pulsetto, using cervical stimulation, stimulates the vagus nerve more directly because, like I mentioned, the vagus nerve starts in the brainstem and runs down through the neck, so it stimulates it directly through the neck, whereas the Nuropod, using auricular stimulation, stimulates a more peripheral branch of the vagus nerve that comes up into the ear. During my first 2 weeks of testing vagus nerve stimulation devices, I started off by using the Nuropod. Like I mentioned earlier, one thing that originally drew me toward wanting to try the Nuropod is that auricular vagus nerve stimulation, using the ear as the path to vagus nerve stimulation, has a larger body of published literature, and I'm somebody that really appreciates reading the research on these things and really getting to understand the potential effects before I try it. Although something I did notice, not in the research but in reviews that I had read and different content that I was looking at, is that even though there is more research about auricular vagus nerve stimulation, the challenge can be that people's ear shapes and structures can differ, and that can sometimes mess with placement or the efficiency of the device. But I see myself as having pretty typical shaped ears, so I wasn't too worried about that. As you can see, the device comes with this little remote and then the earpiece that plugs into the remote. You can fully control this device using the remote, including adjusting the time of the session and the power. And then the earpiece is a moldable, bendable wire that you bend around your ear, sort of like a hearing aid or those headphones that wrap around the ear. And then you clip the clip onto your tragus, which is this soft part that sort of sticks out on the side of your ear. Okay, this is my first time trying the Nuropod, and this is my first time trying any kind of vagus nerve stimulation device. So I'm kind of curious how it's going to feel. I'm a little bit scared of how it's going to feel because I know my body is very sensitive to things and my nervous system is very sensitive, but let's see. Okay, so you turn it on, and I'm going to start this first time with 30 minutes. So you just adjust the time and then you adjust the level. And I've bent this wire to fit around my ear. I guess you just clip it to a trigger. There we go. I'm going to start on level 1. I don't feel anything. They say you're supposed to feel tingling, but not burning or pain. The problem I'm finding is that I don't feel that tingling sensation. And then when I turn the level up, it starts to hurt and it really starts to sting. So I'm not sure if I'm doing it wrong, if it's in the wrong place. Also, this ear clip keeps falling off. I don't know why it won't stay on my ear. I can't move at all or it starts falling off. About halfway through, I noticed that my brain got very calm. I felt like my body shifted into a calmer state. Although it was hard to get the earpiece to stay, I felt like it was a challenge to get it to shape around my ear. Like if it was pulling too much, then it would pull the clip off. But if it wasn't molded enough, then it would just sort of fall off because it had nowhere to sit and stay. My brain definitely feels calm. I also noticed that it was stinging a bit, which after doing some research and looking at the instructions, it said that can happen sometimes if your skin is very dry, which my skin around my ears is very dry. So I added some moisturizer, which definitely helped with the stinging, but then it made the clip fall off even more because then my skin was kind of slippery. I just woke up and I'm going to try it just 15 minutes again, but see if I can get up to level 2 and not just stay at level 1. I went up to level 2 for the second half and it was fine. I didn't feel any of that stinging pain. I also saw that they recommend putting a bit of moisture on the skin and my skin is already really dry here, so I think that definitely did help. The pain is actually coming from the ear clip itself. So I don't know if I'm just extra sensitive on my ear, but it does quite hurt and it doesn't stop hurting when I take it off. I still kind of feel it. After a few minutes of taking it off, that pain went away. On the third day, I went up to 30 minutes starting at level 2 and then I increased to level 3 and level 4. And on this day, I downloaded the app. First, I took their Nuropod quiz, which is sort of like an assessment. It was very long and there were a lot of questions, but as you can see, it does give you a vagus nerve results score. I felt like this wasn't extremely accurate for me given the questions. I'm somebody who is very functional in my everyday life and I just feel like my nervous system is very dysregulated and gets dysregulated and triggered and activated very easily. And I was thinking that there would be more questions about what certain types of activities or what things in your daily life trigger that, but it was more about symptoms that you have. So I wasn't sure how accurate that was for me. And I scored a 26 out of 100, which is apparently good. Honestly, that does confuse me a little bit. I would have assumed that higher would be better, but I guess lower is better. So that's not too bad. But then again, if this is a pretty good score, I feel like my nervous system is very dysregulated and I probably have very low vagus nerve tone. So honestly, this did confuse me a bit. But based on the assessment, the app gave me a protocol. It said that I should be doing 20 to 60 minutes daily or 15 to 30 minutes twice a day, which is more what I went towards, and that I should use it between 3 and 7 days a week to get the most out of it. And even though you can completely control the device just from the little remote that's connected to the earpiece, they also have guided sessions in the app, which is sort of like a guided meditation breathing session, as you can see, and you're just guided by the voice to do breathing throughout the session. On the fourth day, I did a 30-minute session and I started at level 4, but I started to feel that stinging sensation, so I went back down to level 3, which got rid of that sensation. And then the next day is when it all started to go downhill. I started at level 3 and was trying to do a 30-minute session, and about 10 minutes in, it started hurting. I don't know if it's supposed to hurt this much. So I went down to level 2 to see if the level was just too high, but it just continued to get worse. And around 15 minutes, I noticed that I was getting a headache. It wasn't just my ear hurting, which is what had been happening the past few days. The pain started to radiate up into my head and honestly started to go onto the other side of my head as well, because the clip is supposed to go on your left ear. So that's where I had it. And that's when I had to stop. Now I have a splitting headache. I don't know if it's from that or what, but then I thought, you know what, I'll just leave it today. Maybe my head is more sensitive today. Tried again the next day, same thing happened. It wasn't too bad while I was doing it, but then when I took it off, that pain didn't go away and it developed into a headache. The next day I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a full 30-minute session. I'm going to have it at level 2, so lower than what I'd been doing for the past couple of days, and just see what happens. And so throughout the session, I thought, you know, maybe the pain is just sort of a side effect of me feeling this. I'll see how it is at the end. And then at the end, I hadn't realized that it had been 30 minutes because I was just getting some work done while I was doing it. And I noticed the session had actually stopped. So there was no more of the pulses going through, but it was still continuing to hurt. So that's when I knew it wasn't the stimulation itself. It was actually the clipping onto my ear. And even when I took it off and stopped the session, it continued to give me that pain and to develop into a headache. So unfortunately, after about 10 days, I did have to stop using the Nuropod. So after using the Nuropod for a couple of weeks, I definitely noticed benefits like my mind being very calm, something that I would notice a few minutes into the session. I would notice my mind calm down and I would feel those calming effects even afterwards. And I hadn't been sleeping very well before I started using it. And once I started using it, I definitely noticed that I was sleeping more soundly, is the best way I would describe it. It was challenging at first to get it to fit onto my ear and to get it stay clipped on, but after adjusting it a lot, I was able to get it to stay a lot better, although I did always have to adjust it at least a few times during each session. Overall, the device is really small and compact, so it's easy to throw in a bag if you're on the go, or just pick up and use at any time throughout the day. At the end of using the Nuropod, I was a little bit skeptical because of the pain that I'd been having. I thought maybe vagus nerve stimulation just isn't for me. Maybe I'm not somebody who can handle it. Maybe it sort of triggers some of my symptoms. Maybe it triggers my nervous system, because I've had strange paradoxical reactions to things before that are supposed to be regulating and calming that actually do the opposite for me. But I thought, you know what, I need to give the Pulsetto a shot. So I started using the Pulsetto. The first thing I noticed is it is a much bigger device. It's not as compact, and you do have to use the conduction gel on your neck. As you can see, it's this sort of collar looking device, and it has stimulation points on both sides. It also came with a case and the conduction gel to use. It also comes with these two cushion-like bumpers that magnetize onto the back that helps it fit better around your neck. Okay, it's time to try the Pulsetto. I've got the electrode gel and I chose the larger neck pad because I have a feeling that I'm going to need this as small as it can get. Oh, that actually feels quite nice. I can feel it buzzing, but it's quite gentle, even buzzing. And the nice thing is that I can feel it, and I can feel it on both sides. I had to get it in the right position, but I can feel it on both sides. So I know it's working, but it doesn't feel too distracting or intense. With the Nuropod, I mentioned that there is a larger body of published research on auricular vagus nerve stimulation, but I did see this study recently about cervical stimulation and showing that it was associated with a lot of measurable physiological effects like reduced systolic blood pressure, increased alpha brain activity, while auricular stimulation did not show that same impact. So I'll link that study below if you're interested in looking at it. But one of the things that they say about cervical stimulation is that it is much more direct, because as I mentioned, the vagus nerve does directly run down from the brainstem and through the neck. So it's designed to deliver a deeper and more direct signal. The Pulsetto is controlled through the app. The app itself is free, and a lot of the programs that you can use for the different sessions are free, but they do also have a paid subscription that you can upgrade to. The paid includes different stimulation programs for different targets. One thing I've been really loving about the Pulsetto is how many different session types they have. They have ones that target relaxation, stress, sleep, and so many other ones. I've been liking to do the sleep one at night, but right now, since it's the morning, I'm doing the relaxation session. And they also have a personalized one. The app also has different meditations you can use, and you can also connect wearables like smart rings, and you can even just integrate it with Apple Health so that you can get AI-driven insights to show the effects that using the vagus nerve stimulation device is having on your health in other areas such as sleep and stress. And that's something I really appreciated because I wear an Apple Watch and an Ultra Human ring every single day, mostly to track my activity and sleep. And like I said before, I am a very data-driven person, so I like to be able to see what effects and what trends are happening in my health when I'm trying something new. The first day I used the Pulsetto, I took their quiz, which was very short, and it recommended that my priority be anxiety, although I could still choose any session, but it recommended that, so that's the one I did. It ended up being a 6-minute session, which I could extend, but it showed that the minimum amount was 6 minutes, so I thought might as well try the 6 minutes, and I left it on level 1. I immediately, I could feel it. I could feel little tingling, sort of like a consistent buzz. There was no stinging or pain at all. Yeah, it felt like a buzz of vibration on both sides of my neck, sort of where these muscles are. Oh, okay. Interesting. Like I said, I did use the larger neck pad, although I did still feel like it could have been smaller and tighter on my neck. Like if I moved in certain directions during the session, I noticed that it might move a little bit, but I did get used to it after a few minutes in, what position I had to be in. And if I kept my chin pointed ahead, then it kept the device stable and kept that contact really strong. Maybe I actually like that. Could tell when the contact was good because I could feel that consistent buzz. It didn't bother me at all. It actually felt really good. I got kind of used to it after a while, and when the session would stop, I'd be like, oh, I kind of liked that buzz feeling. It sort of reminds me like when you go to the doctor and get some type of needle injection, or I went to a dermatologist one time and they did this, but they have this buzzing device and it distracts you from the pain. Not that there was any pain with this, but that gentle, consistent buzzing was actually a really nice feeling. Just like when I used the Nuropod after I did the session with the Pulsetto, my mind felt very calm. I felt very grounded and at ease. Honestly, I was really nervous about neck stimulation because my neck is very sensitive. I have a lot of tension in my neck, and that causes a lot of problems with headaches and flares up my dysautonomia. But in the end, it did feel really comfortable, and I didn't notice it flaring up any of that. It felt very gentle and comfortable, and it felt very safe. On the second day, I did a 6-minute session for gut health and then a 4-minute session for stress. I did it as soon as I woke up, and usually within about 30 minutes of waking up, I start to feel very shaky. I feel very activated, and this day I didn't. That was the first time that I didn't, and I usually do some type of meditation when I wake up. So really the only difference was that I was using the device. I didn't even do my meditation. I think I was actually folding my laundry while I was using the device and like prepping my breakfast, but I really did notice that difference, and it was the first time that I can remember where I woke up and didn't start to feel that shaky, activated state, and I didn't feel that even an hour later. It's kind of crazy because I really did not like the other device I tried, but this one I've actually been looking forward to using every single day. I usually use it either in the morning or in the evening before I shower, so it's easier. I mean, you can just wipe off the gel, but I don't know, there's something just about knowing that it's on me, but it just feels so nice, and I actually do think it's working. When you upgrade to premium in the Pulsetto app, one of the features that you also get is the personalized session. So at the beginning, you can do a little check-in based on how you're feeling that day, your energy level, symptoms, and it will create a custom session for you. So I really enjoyed doing that. I did that on the third day, and it gave me a 16-minute session, which was the longest one I'd done. And I actually was able to go up to intensity of 4, but I honestly didn't really feel like I needed to go that high because I was feeling the effects. Like I mentioned, I was always feeling really calm. That was the consistent thing I noticed, is that after the session I felt really calm. My mind didn't feel like it was racing anymore. But then when I did use the gut health session, that's when I noticed that I didn't get that same feeling after I eat breakfast that I often get, that makes me feel very like stressed and like my body is jumping into a fight or flight state. Wearing this in the morning has become part of my morning routine now, because I've noticed when I wear it before I have breakfast, how I feel after I eat is significantly better than when I don't wear it. And when you're digesting food, being in that rest and digest parasympathetic state really helps you digest. And I really do attribute that to using this. I got used to using the Pulsetto in the morning, mostly because of the gel. It was an inconvenience to me to have to wash the gel off afterwards. I mean, you can just wipe it off, but to me, just the idea of having some leftover gel on my neck wasn't very appealing. So I did tend to use it in the morning. And then when I would want to use it throughout the day, or I didn't get a chance to use it in the morning and wanted to use it throughout the day, I felt more limited in that. Like it was less easy just to pick up and use. I tried the Nuropod for 2 weeks and then I tried the Pulsetto for 2 weeks, and there are definitely pros and cons to both devices. With the Nuropod, ear anatomy and placement can vary between different people, which can influence the consistency. I felt like it fell off and out of place and I had to adjust it every few minutes, and it personally gave me a headache every time I used it, and I'm assuming that's just because of the area and the nerve that it is placed on. The sessions are 30 to 60 minutes, which for me and my daily routine is quite long, and there's only one type of session and frequency. It is also the most expensive device I've seen out there at $900. But the pros are that it is a smaller, lighter device. You can just throw it into a bag and take it with you on the go. There's also a larger body of research for auricular vagus nerve stimulation, and you don't need the app at all to use it and operate it. Moving on to the Pulsetto, in order to get all the different session types and targets, you do have to upgrade to the premium subscription. And when you use it, you do have to use the conduction gel and put a pretty good amount on your neck, which you then have to either wipe off or wash off afterwards. Cervical stimulation is a newer approach, which is being shown to be able to offer a more consistent and direct stimulation. For me, it was very comfortable. I could clearly feel that it was working, but I wasn't distracted by it. And I honestly really liked how it felt. There are lots of different stimulation programs for different targets, whether you want to target stress, anxiety, pain, digestion, sleep, just overall recovery, inflammation, and sessions start between 4 to 6 minutes. I liked that I could, do 20 minutes of stimulation and pick a few different shorter programs and different targets. And it also integrates with wearables and the health data that you already have to provide those insights. For their best model, the Pulsetto FIT, it is $546, but right now they're having a big sale, so it is less than $300. As you can tell, there are pros and cons to both devices. Devices like the Nuropod helped introduce vagus nerve stimulation to a wider audience through ear-based stimulation. And now as we're seeing this category evolve, we're seeing a shift towards cervical approaches, which can provide a more consistent and direct engagement with the vagus nerve. I'll definitely be continuing to use the Pulsetto. I really enjoyed using it, and I do feel like I got decent benefits already, and I've only been using it for a couple of weeks, so I'm excited to continue to use it, play around with when and how I use it in my routine to get the best benefits and effects for me. I'm really glad I did this, and I'm honestly so thankful for Pulsetto. Thank you again to Pulsetto for sponsoring this video, because I wasn't going to try this device and I probably would have thought, okay, then vagus nerve stimulation isn't for me. And at first I was afraid of trying the neck stimulation, but now it truly feels like such a safe and convenient option for me. Truly the only downside for me is using the gel, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. I'm sure I'll get over. I've already started getting over the fact that I'm just gonna wipe the gel off and forget that it's there. I honestly don't notice it throughout the rest of the day if I just don't think about it, but it's just the fact that I think about those things. And honestly, that would have kind of sucked if Pulsetto was like, we would love to work with you, and then I tried 2 devices and said, well, actually, I don't like your device. So I'm really glad that I love the Pulsetto, and it means that if you're interested in trying Pulsetto, I have a discount code that you can use. You can use code JennaXHealth for 10% off. I will also put the code in the description and a link that you can use to go to the exact device that I got. I hope this was helpful in providing more information about vagus nerve stimulation, different device options, and my experience using some of those devices. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.